Okay, let us start with the Kirtan. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana, Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, let us begin with prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Harihi Om Tatsat. Okay, now we will read Canto number 3, chapter number 14, verse number 37. We will go through that. Maitreyo Vacha Swasarga Shishya Ashisham Lokyam Ashasanam Pravepati Nivritta Sandhya Niyamo Bharyam Aha Prajapatihi. Yes, anybody wants to repeat this one? Maitreyo Vacha. I'll tell once more. If anybody wants to repeat, can repeat please. Maitreyo Vacha Swasarga Ashisham Lokyam Ashasanam Pravepati Nivritta Sandhya Niyamo Bharyamaha Prajapatihi. Anybody want to repeat? Okay. I will read this synonyms also. Maitreya Uvacha. The great sage Maitreya said, Swa Sargasya, of her own children, Ashisham, welfare, Lokyam, in the world, Ashasanam, desiring, Pravepatim, while trembling, Nivritta, averted from, Sandhya Niyamaha, the rules and regulations of evening, Bharyam, unto the wife, Aha, said, Prajapatihi, the progenitor. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maitreya said, the great sage Kashyapa thus addressed his wife, who was trembling because of fear that her husband was offended. She understood that he had been dissuaded from his daily duties of offering evening prayers, yet she desired the welfare of her children in the world. Let us read the next verse, text number 38. Kashyapa uvacha aprayatyad atmanaste doshan mauhurtikaduta mannideshati charena devanam chati helanat. Anybody want to read this one? This is a little easier verse. Okay, I will read the synonyms. Kashyapa uvacha, the learned Brahmana Kashyapa said, Aprayat, because of the pollution, Atmanaha, of the mind, Te, your, Doshat, because of defilement, Mahurtikat, in terms of the moment, Uta, also, Mat, my, Nidesha, direction, Aticharena, being too neglectful, Devanam, of the demigods, Cha, also, Atihelanat, being too apathetic. Translation: the learned Kashyapa said, because of your minds being polluted, because of defilement of the particular time, because of your negligence of my directions, and the purpose of your being apathetic to the demigods, everything was inauspicious. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The conditions for having good progeny in society are that the husband should be disciplined in religious and regulative principles, and the wife should be faithful to the husband. In Bhagavad-Gita 7:11, it is said that sexual intercourse, according to religious principles, is a representation of Krishna consciousness. Before engaging in sexual intercourse, both the husband and the wife must consider their mental condition, the particular time, the husband's direction, and obedience to the demigods. According to Vedic society, there is a suitable auspicious time for sex life, which is called the time for Garbhadhana. Diti neglected all the principles of scriptural injunction, and therefore, although she was very anxious for auspicious children, she was informed that her children would not be worthy to be sons of a Brahmana. This is a clear indication herein that a Brahmana's son is not always a Brahmana. Personalities like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu were actually born of Brahmanas, but they were not accepted as Brahmanas because their fathers did not follow the regulative principles for their birth. Such children are called demons or Rakshasas. There were only one or two Rakshasas in the previous ages due to negligence of the disciplinary methods. But during the age of Kali, there is no discipline in sex life. How then one can expect good children? Certainly, unwanted children cannot be a source of happiness in society, but through the Krishna consciousness movement, they can be raised to the human standard by chanting the holy name of God. That is the unique contribution of Lord Chaitanya to human society. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Yes, so let us discuss this story so far. We are reciting the verse. We have recited 2 verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 14th chapter, 37 and 38th verse. So far, what has happened is Vidura is taking instructions from Maitreya Muni. And Vidura specifically asked a question that he wanted to hear more about the story of Varahadeva. And Maitreya Rishi was explaining why Hiranyaksha was born. So this is the mentality of the pure devotees, that they are not satisfied with how much ever story they may hear. They want to know more. They don't get satisfied by that. That is the symptom of a pure devotee. So one day, Kashyapa Muni was sitting in a Agnishala doing fire sacrifice during the afternoon time, near about just before the sunset. And the Muhurta of Sandhya Kala was about to start. Sandhya Kala is the 48 minutes of sunset. During that time, it is called as a Sandhya Kala. So at that time, the religious duty for Kashyapa Muni, being a Brahmana, was to perform Sandhya Vandana. But at that time, Diti came. Diti was one of his wives, right? And she was the daughter of Daksha Prajapati. And Diti was very agitated by Cupid or Kamadeva. And she was very agitated by lust. And she started saying that she wants a son. And that she started saying that all her sisters have a son. The sisters also happen to be the wives of Kashyapa Prajapati. And she says that, whatever I am asking is not wrong. I am asking for a good progeny, for a good son. So this is my request. So therefore, she was requesting that her desire be satisfied. Then Kashyapa Muni said, it is very nice. It is very fortunate to have you as my wife. And then he starts to praise the Grihastha Ashrama in various different ways. He says, and he little bit exaggerates also, praising her, trying to pacify her, to tell her that this is not the appropriate time for union, because that is the time of the Sandhya or the sunset. And that is a very inauspicious time for doing that. So, but she persisted, and because of which Kashyapa Muni had to give in and satisfy her in a secluded place. And once the union was done, Diti felt very sad. She felt very upset, especially because her husband, who was very learned, had warned that Lord Shiva would be traveling in that time along with his Parshadas, the Bhuta Preta Ganas, or the ghosts. So she was very much afraid now that she has done a big mistake by not following her husband's instruction and not waiting for the appropriate time. So this is the verse where Kashyapa Prajapati, what he does next is he will take a bath, and he will complete his Sandhya rites, which he was supposed to do. And he comes to Diti and starts explaining what are the mistakes that Diti has done. So in this verse, in the first verse, you see 13.3.14.37, it is a description of just saying that Diti was very afraid of her husband because her husband was offended. In the next verse, 14:38, there is a mention of 4 defects of this union, what has happened. So this union between the husband and the wife that has happened, it has got 4 defects. So the defect number 1 is aprayatyat atmanati, means ashuchi mana, means apavitra mana, means at the time of having the sexual intercourse between the husband and wife, Diti's mind was filled with lusty desires. So her mind became completely impure. That was the defect number 1. And the defect number 2 is doshan mauhurtikat, muhurta dosha. It was a very inauspicious time. The Sandhya Kala or the sunset time is said, it's to be said to be very inauspicious time because all the Bhuta Preta Ganas and all the ghosts and hobgoblins will be traveling freely everywhere along with their controller, Lord Shiva. Okay. So by having a union at that time, what Lord Shiva would say is being very merciful to the ghosts, and he will send one of the ghosts to become the son of that mother. So that kind of a ghost or that kind of a preta will enter, right? Or that some kind of pichacha will enter inside the womb of that mother who undergoes this sexual union at that time. So, and so that is the reason why it is prohibited in the Shastras that time, we should not do such a kind of activity that time. So what is expected to do that time is, those who are the Dvijas or the twice born, they do or those who are Brahmin initiated, they chant Gayatri. And those who are not, they are expected to chant the holy names of Krishna, like that. Okay, it is time for sadhana. It's not time for television or time pass or roaming around. The third defect was man nidesha aticharena. She did not follow husband's instruction. So the duty of a wife is to follow the instructions of the husband. And moreover, Kashyapa Prajapati was very well qualified in scriptural knowledge, in spiritual knowledge, etc. The fourth defect was Devanam cha atihelanat. So by doing this kind of activity, she had insulted the demigods, especially Lord Shiva, who is the three-eyed one, despite warning from her husband. Right? So, therefore, you see, what is the main defect among these 4? I told 4 defects, no? First one was that, mind was not pure. Second one was time was not pure. Third one was did not follow husband instruction. Fourth one was insult to the demigods. So can anybody guess what is the main defect among these 4? Yes. What is the main defect among these 4?
Insulting the Lord.
Yes, you would have guessed it right. The main defect is her mind was impure. So at the time of preparation for begetting a child, her mindset should have been proper. So begetting children in a grihastha life is not wrong. And she asking her husband for a son is also not wrong. But having, going with a lusty desire and doing it at an inauspicious time and offending Lord Shiva was wrong. And that's the reason why, two demons named Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were born to her, which will be coming in the later part of this story. So, this lusty desire is something which we must keep a check on, because in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says, before giving up the present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is a yogi and he is happy in the world. Also, in Bhagavad-Gita, 17th chapter, 16th chapter Bhagavad-Gita, Lord Krishna says towards the end, he says, Yah shastra viddhim utsrijya vartate kamakarataha nasa siddhim avapnoti nasukham na param gatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. So here also the word has been used by Lord Krishna. Yah shastra viddhim utsrijya vartate kamakarataha. Kamakarataha means whimsical action out of lust. So if we break the scriptural injunctions based on our lusty desires, then what is the result? Neither perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme destination. So this was exactly the rule given by Lord Krishna, which the Diti, the mother of the demons, had violated, because of which she had to give birth to the very powerful demons, Kamakarata. So the rules and regulations have been given in the Shastras. They are given for us to elevate to a higher platform. So the higher platform is that we come to the stage of Krishna consciousness. But if somebody is following all the rules and yet does not become Krishna conscious, such knowledge is all spoiled. Right? So the purpose, we have to understand the rules and regulations have been given in the Shastras so that we are able to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. This is the main rule of the scriptures. But all the other auxiliary rules are supporting rules for this principle. Also, Lord Krishna says in the same chapter, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te Karya Karya Vyavastitau Yatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karma Kartum Iharhasi. One should therefore understand what is duty, what is not duty by the regulations of scriptures. Knowing such rules of scriptures, one should act so that he may gradually be elevated. So this is a difference between a godly person and a demoniac person, an asura and a deva. A godly person follows the scriptural injunctions given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, laid out in the various scriptures like Manu Samhita, and more importantly, the rules which are given in Bhagavad-Gita. But an asura or a demoniac person, pravrittimcha nivrittimcha jana na vidurasura, he flaunts these rules. So then the rules, if you flaunt the rules, what is the problem? I will tell you. The problem, the rules have been given, all these scriptural injunctions have been given so that we are in the platform of mode of goodness. So if we are in the mode of goodness, we can easily elevate ourselves to Krishna consciousness and we can understand about Krishna. But as long as we are in the mode of passion and mode of ignorance, it will become very difficult for us to take this process of Krishna consciousness or to understand the science of Krishna. But having said that, these rules are strictly applicable for those people who are not into devotional service at all. They are for the ordinary people who are not engaged in the Krishna consciousness. But having said that, even the devotees also must be very careful not to break any rules and regulations, to avoid any kind of fall down. Okay. So now let us talk about Grihastha life versus Grihamedi life. So the four ashramas have been created by Lord Krishna. The plan of Lord Krishna is that all the living entities go back to Godhead from this material world of suffering. So somehow or the other, the living entities have come inside this material world, which is full of suffering and miseries. Now they have to exit this material world. They require some knowledge. They have to follow the scriptural injunctions, which are given. These Vedas are emanating from the Supreme Personality of God, its body. So therefore, they are very pure. They do not have any defects. They're not like a mundane literature. So just like how some people say, oh, these are all things that we have written. Oh, this is not something which is there. Who knows, like that? It's not like that. Because the kind of books that we write have various kinds of defects. But these kind of defects are not there in the Shastras. Right? Because the Shastras have been coming in the Shruti Parampara, that is in the hearing. And the people who have written this are not in a kind of they don't have the defects, like, for example, they don't have the cheating propensity, they don't get illusioned, they don't lie, right? They don't think something to be something else, like that. Okay. So, but these problems are there with us. So therefore, we must take the scriptures very seriously, scriptural injunctions very seriously. And we have to understand that, this Krishna's plan, various ashramas are there. Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. Grihastha ashrama is also very important. Grihastha ashrama is very important because the Grihastha ashrama only supports all the other three ashramas also. Be it brahmacharis, or be the sannyasis or the vanaprasthas. Where do they come from? They don't come from sky. They have to come through the grihasthas only. So therefore, it is the duty of the grihasthas to follow the rules and regulations of the marriage, which are laid out in the scriptures, and carefully produce Krishna conscious children. Right? So that is because, in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says in 7.11, I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to the religious principles, O Lord of the Bharatas, Arjuna. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, a strong man's strength should not be applied to the strong man's strength should not be applied to exploit the weak, but it should be applied to protect the weak. Similarly, its sex life should be utilized according to the religious principles for the propagation of children, that too for the propagation of Krishna conscious children, religious children who are not a burden on the earth. So the responsibility of the parents is to make their offspring Krishna conscious. And Grihastha ashrama is a very wonderful ashrama in comparison to the other ashramas, because Kashyapa Muni also has described this in the previous verses when he was jokingly talking to Diti, trying to pacify her to delay the union. But there's a lot of wisdom here. It's he says, as one can cross over the ocean of sea-going vessels, one can cross the dangerous situation of the material ocean by living with a wife. And it is given as a fort commander very easily conquers invading plunderers. By taking shelter of a wife, one can conquer the senses which are unconquerable in the other social orders. So if it is a life of a brahmachari or of a sannyasi is very risky also in one sense, because if they somehow or the other, they get attracted to a female and they fall down, it will become a very big fall down for them. But for a grihastha, there is no chance, because he will be living along with his wife. right? So the possibility of falling down is practically not there. Wife will be always there, right, to protect the husband from falling down. So that is why grihastha is very important. But we have to understand that, grihastha there is a difference between grihastha and griha medhi. That we have to understand. Grihastha is a spiritual life. Means being married also, following the rules and regulations given in the scriptures, and doing sexual intercourse only for getting children, that too for getting Krishna conscious children, and working with the principle of with Krishna in the center. This is the perfect grihastha life, which is a nivritti marga, and both the husband and wife will go back to Godhead by this method. But whereas the grihamedhi is very attached to his house. So they are very attached to the house, and their main purpose of life is sense gratification. They want to enjoy to the fullest. They will do all kinds of planning, retirement planning, this planning, that planning, family planning, contraceptives, this, that, that kind of operations. So many operations they will do only for sense gratification. That is the purpose of their life. So that is a grihamedhi. You should understand clearly what is the difference. So there is a clear difference between kama and prema. If we are trying to satisfy our own senses, that is called kama or lust. But if we try to please the senses of Lord Krishna, that is prema. So our aim should be to satisfy Lord Krishna. If you try to satisfy Lord Krishna and we are trying to beget children who are Krishna conscious, then such children or such kind of a kama is, Krishna is saying that is also Krishna consciousness, right? But for that, I will tell you certain rules. This is called as the Garbhadhana Samskara. It is one of the 16 Samskaras. Garbhadhana Samskara. Samskara means, first of all, reformatory process. Means a process for purification of the body, mind, intelligence and false ego of the husband and wife, for creating devotional impressions upon the body, mind, intelligence, ego, etc. Right? So the purpose is to create devotional impressions. These samskaras are performed for every human being. 16 samskaras are there. First samskara is the Garbhadhana Samskara. The purpose of this Garbhadhana Samskara is to beget Krishna conscious children. Garbhadhana Samskara means following the rules and regulations before the husband and wife do a union. Okay, there are actually different types of samskaras. One is called as a Brahma Samskara, another is called as a Daiva Samskara. Brahma Samskara is what I am telling, 16 samskaras including Garbhadhana Samskara, right? Namakarana and Yagnopavita, like that, different kind of samskaras are there. That is the Brahma Samskaras related to the body. Daiva Samskaras means fire sacrifices, different fire sacrifices which are given in the Vedas. But in the present Kali Yuga, all the Daiva Samskaras can be fulfilled simply by the chanting of the Sankirtana. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Simply by doing Sankirtana, all the Daiva Samskaras are fulfilled. So Garbha means womb. Adhana means placing the seed. I would like to read one purport by Srila Prabhupada here. This is of Srimad Bhagavatam 5.2.2. According to the Vedic system, therefore, before a child is conceived, the Garbhadhana Samskara is performed. This Samskara molds the mentality of the father in such a way that when he plants his seed in the womb of his wife, he will beget a child whose mind will be completely saturated with a devotional attitude. At the present moment, however, there are no such Garbhadhana Samskaras, and therefore people generally have a lusty attitude when they beget children. Especially in the age of Kali, there are no Garbhadhana Samskaras. Everyone enjoys sex with his wife like a cat or dog. Therefore, according to Shastric injunctions, almost all the people of this age belong to the Sudra category. This is the purport written by Srila Prabhupada from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.2.2. So what we can understand is that we have to see different kinds of rules. For example, there is something called as a Ritukala. Ritukala means a fertile period. Fertile only, I mean, like a husband should approach a wife only during the fertile period. And that too for the sake of begetting Krishna conscious children. And for that, certain astrology also must be seen, that there is no inauspicious time of the union. And they should also avoid some kind of Ekadashi, Dwadashi, Purnima, Amavasya, these kind of days, Janmashtami, Ramanavami, these kind of Parvadinas must be avoided. So without Garbhadhana Samskara, what happens? The family will become Grihamedi. Like all the families of the Kali Yuga, it will become Grihamedi, only for enjoying sense gratification, forgetting Krishna, right? That is this one. So therefore, we have to understand that all these rules are there. We can read them. We can get these rules by reading various books are there written by the devotees on Garbhadhana Samskara. You can read those books if you want to know more about it. So the parents who are creating these children have got a responsibility. It's not that, the children are born in a devotee family and Garbhadhana Samskara is done and forget it now. Now put them into some kind of sense gratification activities. No, because Bhagavatam says, one who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death should never become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, or a worshipable demigod. That means the parents must take every care to ensure that the children are Krishna conscious. That is their duty. If they're not able to fulfill such a duty, they must not have children at all. And practically we can see that those children who are grown in the Krishna consciousness atmosphere, they are calmer, they are more disciplined in comparison with the other kids who are very agitated, right? And how to do this Krishna consciousness? How do we inculcate Krishna consciousness in children? And what time we should inculcate? Is it that, we will let them do whatever they want and we will say, okay, let some good time come, he will only come. Until then, I will not even tell him. Is that the correct procedure? That let him just go with a mundane education. I will not tell anything to my children. One day they will only come. Is that correct? That's wrong. Because Prahlad Maharaj says, Kaumara achare pragnyo dharman bhagavataniha durlabham manusham janma tadapyamadhruvam arthadam. Means Prahlad Maharaj is saying the devotional service must start at the age of 5 years. How will it start at the age of 5 years? That means the parents should enable devotional service in the family, right? The parents must give an atmosphere in such a way that they are able to do Krishna consciousness. For example, the parents should encourage their children to chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is the most basic fundamental thing. Of course, they should not punish them. They should not say, if you are going to do this, I'll make you chant 2 more rounds. This should be avoided. Should lovingly, we should ask them to chant. How many rounds they can chant? They should be encouraged to chant. That is very important. They must be not allowed to, eat non-devotee food, right? Which is not offered to Krishna. That kind of food should be avoided. And we should try to avoid all the kind of a cartoon, cinemas kind of a thing. We should avoid giving them, or else it will counteract whatever Krishna consciousness that the child is getting. It will counteract, right? So I would like to read Srila Prabhupada's letter, on Krishna conscious children. This letter is to Upendra Dasa, written on December 8th, 1968. Prabhupada writes, we require so many householders to set the example for others. How in Krishna consciousness we can live peacefully even in married life. Also, we require so many Krishna conscious children to show how nicely and beautifully a child can develop when he is following the principles of God consciousness. So it is a duty of all the Grihastha couples to nicely follow this Krishna consciousness. And being in the Grihastha ashrama, begetting children, being their important duties, they must set a nice, perfect example where the entire society can see that this is a perfect role model for a family. How parents should be, how children should be, how they should be cultured, all this should be given. Right. And I will read another letter written to Jagadisha Dasa, July 9th, 1970. Prabhupada is writing, now you husband and wife must work together combinedly with great responsibility for raising your new child in ideal Krishna consciousness. Children learn by imitation of their parents. So if you both set Krishna conscious example, the child will be very naturally and easily advanced in Krishna conscious by following. So if the parents are not following Krishna consciousness, and if they are telling the children to follow Krishna consciousness, the children will never follow that. So that will be hypocrisy, and children very easily understand how serious their parents are in devotional service. So first we have to set an example. The parents have to set a good example. And again, having said that, there is no guarantee that, devotees, they will become devotees. Parents must put all their things, effort, but there's still no guarantee, because Advaita Acharya had 6 children. 3 of them were devotees, 3 of them were smartas. Therefore, there is no guarantee that they will be a devotee, right? So, but having said that, parents must be very careful. And here is one quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He says, if I can produce Krishna Bhakta as children, then I am prepared to marry and produce hundreds of children. This is a very important duty, that we must have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of Krishna Bhaktas as children. They are the future of the civilization, right? Those people who can lead the society with an example, right? They must be Vaishnavas, just like how the Pandavas are there. They must have a perfect character, ideal, right? Even Lord Krishna is praising such a birth, that those who are, very lucky to be born in the family of a transcendentalists, those who, perform yoga for a long time and they fall down at the end, they are born in the family of devotees. So being born in the family of devotees is one, and then we have to give them opportunity also. In Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says, the duty of duty of the brahmacharis and the grihasthas. In the 4.26, Lord Krishna says, Shrotradin indriyanyanye samyam yagnishu juvati shabdadin vishayananya indriyagnishu juvati. Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mind control. And others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of senses in the fire of the senses. So that means that grihastha life, Garbhadhana Samskara, is a fire sacrifice. It is like a Krishna consciousness, because it is said, sacrificing the object of senses in the fire of senses. But it is regulated householders. It is not for unrestricted grihamedis. That is not Krishna consciousness, right? So that is the thing. So I would like to conclude by telling the story of His Holiness, His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura was the Guru Maharaj of Srila Prabhupada. He was born on 6th February 1874 to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also comes in the line of our disciplic succession as one of the preceptor acharyas. So at that time, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was writing intensely so many literature on the message of Lord Chaitanya. That time what had happened, the Gaudiya Vaishnavism almost became extinct. And whatever form of the Gaudiya Vaishnavism was practiced was extremely corrupt. And without following any rules, the Sahajism was prevalent. So with intense desire, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was writing books. At that time, one day, Jagannath came into his dreams. Actually, he was in Jagannath Puri only. He was working as in a big post there, in a government post. And Lord Jagannath comes in his dreams and says, why do you think I called you here? I didn't call you for settling legal matters so that you become a good magistrate. I called you here, you spread the message, my message you spread everywhere. That is the reason why I called you to Jagannath Puri. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in his dream to the Lord, dear Lord, what can I do? I have very limited power with me. I have limited strength. It's not possible for me. So therefore, you please send me an extraordinary personality who is empowered by you, right? Who is a ray of Vishnu, you send me, then, I will give him complete support. Then Lord Jagannath said, you pray to Vimala Devi in Jagannath Puri for a very good son. Like that, Bhakti Vinod Thakur and his wife, they performed severe austerities, they worshipped the Supreme Lord, and they intensely prayed that they get a Krishna conscious son who would spread this message of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. Then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born. The astrologer, as soon as he saw the Kundali chart, he said Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur had 32 symptoms of an exalted personality. And he predicted that he will become a world famous as teacher of life's ultimate goal. So Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur went ahead to create 108 Gaudiya Matas all over India and also one in Europe, that too during the British regime. And also, what to tell, he is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, who had actually spread this Krishna consciousness to the entire world, by the mercy of whom we all have become devotees. So this is what we have discussed today. We discussed about Diti's pregnancy, how Diti was trembling in fear after her mistake, after having a union with her husband in an inauspicious time without following the scriptural rules. So we saw that violation of the scriptural rules is not good, right? And it will cause problems, right? And we saw that Krishna's recommendation is that we have to follow the Bhagavad-Gita and the scriptures, and sexual intercourse among the husband and wife also must be very regulated and be done through Garbhadhana Samskara, and then that becomes Krishna consciousness, to produce Krishna conscious children, right? And that is how we see how, and we saw the role of parents in making the children Krishna conscious, how they should enable a very nice environment, how they must be encouraging children to chant. They must sit down and read Srimad Bhagavatam in front of their children in a way that they understand and discuss, right? And we saw a glorious example of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who is the Guru Maharaj of Srila Prabhupada. And we understand that when we do this also is like a fire sacrifice of the Grihasthas. This is also Krishna consciousness if we follow the rules and regulations given by the Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk on the subject. If anybody has any questions, you can ask. We can take them up now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for wonderfully explaining the word.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I had only
one second, I'm not able to hear you.
Yeah, I have a question, Prabhu.
Yes, Mataji, please come. Tell me.
You mentioned that during the Sandhya Kala, Shiva will try to find the proper womb for for the fallen souls like Bhutaganas and all of them. So, why is it that you also mentioned that he was offended if by Diti's act?
Kashyapa Prajapati was offended. Actually, we have to understand this. This is not a compassionate act, actually.
Offended, no? That is what you mentioned. Lord
yes,
Shiva.
yes. Lord Shiva was offended, and even Kashyapa Prajapati was also offended, because the purpose of human form of life is that good devotees are born, who do not cause disturbance to the society. But then when the ghostly people or this kind of Rakshasas are born, they cause a lot of disturbance in the society, actually. So Lord Shiva won't be actually pleased by that. He will do it as a duty, but he is not pleased by that, because that is not the time that is recommended for doing such a kind of an act. And because of which people, what happens when the people of Rakshasa quality, if they come, what do? First of all, they will trouble women. First, they will start harassing women. They will start spoiling women. That's the first activity of this kind of asuras. Second activity is they will trouble the general public. Third activity is they will make the life of all the saintly people the hell. So like that, these are the three activities that they do. So that is why they are a burden on the earth, such kind of people. Therefore, so it's not correct that, we should, it's not an act of compassion. That's why Lord Shiva got offended, because it's not the time. That's the time Lord Shiva would like us to chant the names of Krishna, do sadhana. Is that clear, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhu. So he would be offended with anybody. It's not just particularly.
He would be offended with anybody who would, break the rules.
Okay. So then what is the relief for these people, like the Bhutaganas and all, because that is the time they try to come. So isn't there any other parihara for them?
Okay, Bhutaganas and Pretas, what is the parihara? Is like, I've heard in one of the Mahatmyas of Bhagavad-Gita that one person was actually, his father, dies, and his father becomes one of this Pishacha, like that, without a body, he's roaming. And he recites the Bhagavad-Gita verses, and that person immediately goes back to Godhead, that Bhutagana. So like that, so the solution is all kinds of solution are there in Krishna consciousness only. So if all the population of the earth start following Krishna consciousness seriously, we can deliver the entire planet. Everybody can go back to Godhead, like that. So actually, there's also one story is also there for Srimad Bhagavatam. Also, I heard this Mahatmya story where there is one Pishacha which will be suffering a lot. That Pishacha will be made to listen to the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then after listening, it will get back its normal body. It will actually go back to Godhead. So the solution is Krishna consciousness only, or else what will happen is they will have to wait. The Bhutas and Pretas, if they are not delivered, it is not infinite. Like they will be made to wait until the end of the Kalpa, and after that, at the end of the Kalpa, they will be given another opportunity. Or there are various other things also I've heard, like in Garuda Purana it is said, these people will be given as a chance as a Yamadutas. They'll become the servants of Yamadharmaraj, like that. So gradual elevation is there, but it will take a long time for them to get relief. But if this, if the descendants of this, let us say there is some Bhutas and Pretas are there, their descendants, one of the generation becomes a devotee. 21 generations get liberated, right? By following, if one devotee is born and is chanting Krishna consciousness, is doing everything, following the rules and regulations, all the generations get liberated from this kind of ghastly things. So that's the only solution. Very quick solution. Yes. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So also one more, if I may ask.
Yes.
So what is the, like you mentioned about Garbhadhana Samskara. Yes. So like only Sandhya Kala is to be avoided, or like what
actually,
is the
there are many rules.
time?
Yeah, there are many rules, Mataji. There is something called as a Ritu Kala. There is also called as avoiding auspicious days, and during the Ritu Kala, and some other rules are there, like seeing some Tara Bala, Chandra Bala, like that. If you want, you can refer to one book. I will refer you. This is Garbhadhana Samskara by Bharat Chandra Das. Okay, Garbhadhana Samskara by Bharat Chandra Prabhu. There is one book written by one devotee. In that, full, complete, clear information is there. You can Google it and you can actually purchase that book.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. The book is
Hare Krishna.
on the counter.
Hare Krishna
The
Prabhu.
book is available on the counter.
Okay. The book is available in the temple counter, Seshadripuram temple counter.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for the information. Yeah. Madhuri, if you happen to come to the temple.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Can you just tell the name of the Prabhuji, author?
Yeah, Bharat Chandra Prabhu.
Okay.
Chandra Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. Hare Krishna. So one of the things that Srila Prabhupada said is, the parents who want to conceive a child must chant minimum of 50 rounds on the day of the conception. That Srila Prabhupada has written one letter to a devotee. Just read that letter to Shyama on Los Angeles, 18 January 1969. So it is said, Prabhupada is writing, you have asked me some questions about the functions of sex life in Krishna consciousness, and the basic principle is that it should be avoided as far as possible. However, if it is unavoidable, then it should be utilized only for begetting Krishna conscious children. In that case, the husband and wife should chant at least 50 rounds before going to sex. The recommended period is 6 days after the menstruation period. So this is what Srila Prabhupada has written. Okay, this is one thing that I thought I'll read it out. Any more questions?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam, Prabhu.
Prabhu, my question was like, as you were saying in the class, that one should follow the Shastras, because, in this Kali Yuga, definitely to know the Shastras, it's very difficult. So how do we manage this, Prabhu? Please.
Yes. So the adjustment can be done. It's a very nice question, Prabhu. First of all, I would like to appreciate that. It's a very nice question because there's definitely a concern that yes, there are lot of Shastras. For this, the answer, I will just tell you, the answer is in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is 1.1.11 and it says, Bhurini Bhuri Karmani Shrotavyani Vibhagashaha Ata Sadhotra Yat Saram Samudhritya Manishayah Bruhi Bhadraya Bhutanam Yenatma Suprasidati. This is one of the questions asked by the sages in the Naimisharanya. The question is very similar to what you asked. There are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them, there are many prescribed duties which can be learned only after many years of study in their various divisions. Therefore, O sage, please select the essence of all these scriptures and explain it for the good of all living beings, that by such instruction, their hearts may be fully satisfied. So this was a question asked by the sages in the Naimisharanya, in the Srimad Bhagavata, and the answer given by Shukadeva Goswami was to do Krishna consciousness, to always remember Krishna, always chant Krishna's name like that. That is why Srila Prabhupada, when he wrote the letter to his disciples, he did not say various different rules. He said chant 50 rounds on that day, right? Because all the other rules, they all get covered. We don't need to actually go through so many Shastras and do so many things. This will adjust everything. Is that clear, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. So
Yeah.
chanting
chanting the Krishna consciousness. This is the Krishna conscious way of, this is a Krishna conscious Bhagavata way of doing it. It's very perfect because it will cover everything. There will be no defect at all. I mean, chanting, remove, if there is any defect also, chanting can remove. That is so much power is there for chanting. Right. So that's why.
Okay. Yes. And moreover, Prabhu, about the letter, what you was just telling, like as Prabhupada has written 50 rounds of japa.
Yes.
And after 6th day of menstrual period, you have to have one. And I feel, Prabhu, like it's after 6th day, it should be once. It's not be like a continuous process, isn't it, Prabhuji?
That's what I think so. Yes. I don't remember very clearly. I couldn't find anything around that. But if you find something, you can share. I don't know.
No, I have heard, Prabhuji. I mean, in the class also, one of the Guru Maharaj, Guru was saying like, it's only once you have to get it done, and then it should not be a mechanical, like it should not be.
It should not be for. I mean, it will become again sense gratification if it's done repeatedly. Yes. Right. And yeah. And actually, I've heard one lecture of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. He was telling I read in his book also. He was saying he has 3 children, and he said that in his lifetime he had intercourse only 3 times. That's it, only for begetting children. Gaur Govinda Maharaj, that's the highest standard of grihastha life that the acharyas have set. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhu. Thanks a lot, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, then we'll wind up. Thank you very much for joining. See you again. Hare Krishna. Keep joining the sessions every day morning at 8 o'clock for Srimad Bhagavatam class. Thank you. Hare Krishna. I'll end the meeting now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Wonderful class, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Gurudev. Hare Krishna.